All set. I say, and William has been sending his note taker. So it's a fancy way to use AI, I think. With that, since we do have 4 presentations today, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. My name is Amy Julian, and we're excited to have 2 partners, well, 4 projects represented, but 2 partners represented today. So we have 2 presenters. Rena Bryson is going to kick us off, and then Carrie Thomas will present after Rena has wrapped up. So with that, I will hand the floor over to Rena so we can get started. And you should also be able to see my slides. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Excellent.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Rena Bryson. I will be presenting on TANF's services. I will start off with an overview and purpose of TANF. Then I will move into the eligibility criteria. Then I will provide I will talk about the service that are provided for the TANF population. I will then conclude with the TANF priorities. So, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, TANF, the Temporary Assistance Program for Needy Family, is TANF. It is a federally funded state-ran program by the Illinois Department of Human Services. TANF is a limited program that consists of 60 months or 5 years, however you want to look at it, that helps families with financial assistance who are experiencing financial hardships and are not able to provide basic needs to their family. The temporary financial assistance will help pay for food, shelter, childcare, utilities, and other expenses, including some medical costs, including some other items like household cleaning items, school supplies, personal hygiene products, things of that nature. TANF recipients are required to participate in work and training activities to continue to qualify for benefits. These activities consist of employment opportunities, skill building activities, educational opportunities, and support services for other items or things like transportation, uniforms, car repairs, things of that nature. So the purpose of TANF is to help families, again, financially, after experiencing some level of hardship. In an effort to diminish this hardship, the TANF program is designed to connect TANF families to the aforementioned services, activities, and resources to acquire skills, education, training opportunities to obtain gainful employment and to become financially independent. This also includes other substantial resources. So the TANF program coordinates and collaborates with contractual agencies and of course, including WIOA programs to assist with employment training, career counseling, education, and other resources and services, again, to assist them with the upmobility efforts. So integrated service delivery has been a pivotal point for providing quality and coordinated services to TANF in orientation sessions, cross-training, American Job Center's resource newsletters, monthly partnership meetings, community service providers monitoring and staffing. And also, the local partners are knowledgeable about the service programs out in the larger community. So the established relationships among the community and WIOA partnerships have enhanced, promoted, and implemented quality integrated service delivery in a highly conceivable manner to ensure opportunities and, most importantly, accessibility. Next slide. So I want to talk about the eligibility, the criteria for eligibility. So you must be a resident of the state in which you apply, be a U.S. citizen, be unemployed or underemployed, have low or no income, be pregnant or have a child under 19 who lives with them. A child who is 18 must be a full-time high school student. A pregnant woman and her husband, if the husband is living with her, may qualify for assistance even if they don't have any other children. So the applicant must live in Illinois. You can also apply if you are homeless. You still will be qualified, and you still may be qualified for TANF benefits. You must be a U.S. citizen with certain immigration requirements. And most importantly, to develop a plan for self-sufficiency and follow through on it. And that is a collective effort between the caseworker and the applicant, and we'll talk more about that. So anyone can apply for benefits. The system determines eligibility. So I've posted some links on the slide for further clarification and more detailed information. Next slide. So services that are provided are transitional services to help families become financially independent, such as in the areas of upskilling their abilities, options, and desire to participate in GED programs, vocational training programs, post-secondary educational programs, vocational rehabilitation services, classes in basic English, assistance with childcare, work stipends, and job retention services. And when we reference retention services, that's real critical during the assessment process because we are encouraging our clients, our customers to not only just look at getting a job or starting a career, but actually looking at factors that can assist them with job retention, career building opportunities. So other provisions include screening for issues related to substance abuse, mental health, domestic violence, and other referrals are available for additional services to address the customer needs. Again, this is a critical component because oftentimes we might say, okay, well, you need to go to work, you need to participate in this work and training activity, but we have to make sure that we don't set them up for failure. We have to look at the whole screening process, the whole assessment process to see if some of these issues can be a barrier to employment and retention and training and all of the other resources and services that are available. So that's an important part of it. Additionally, so a person who applies for TANF will apply for medical assistance because those programs work together simultaneously. You cannot apply for TANF without applying for medical. It is not a separate application. Again, clarification and more detail is available in the on the website, the link that I have provided. Next slide, please. That information is not available right now, but we are working on it. The same applies for that slide as well. So I want to talk, next slide, please.
Oh, sorry, took a second.
Okay, so I want to talk about and conclude with the priorities of the TANF program. So one of the most clarifying priorities regarding the TANF population is to use information that was gathered during the family assessment to assist the applicant in developing a realistic and achievable responsibility and service plan with specific attainable goals that are outlined in the responsibility and service plan that will address the family needs. The plan must contain steps that support the applicant's effort to reach and maintain their independence. The caseworker will work closely and she'll stress the importance of the benefits that they are eligible for at that time is a temporary assistance and the TANF programs and the applicant's personal responsibility to achievement. And the RAS is a personal attainment to achieve independence. They have to stress that part, because even though we say that they have 60 months or 5 years to become self-sufficient, we don't encourage that length of time, because we offer other services and programs and resources to connect them to start looking to attain those self-sufficiency components as soon as possible. So where did I leave off at? So in that RAS, again, well, responsibility and service plan, we identify the strengths and resources that the applicant has and issues that presents barriers. I just kind of mentioned that when designing the RAS. We want to make sure that it's important to record the goals and steps set jointly with the applicant, because together the applicant and the worker will ensure that the goals and the steps are set appropriately and realistically to achieve. So the activities in the plan are structured to meet the specific needs of the person and their family. And it is imperative to refer and match the applicant to helpful resources that will address the family's need and hopefully enhance their motivation to move forward with the mindset to actively participate and complete the assigned activities and the commitment that they've made to do so. So the overall goal is to provide tangible resources, educational opportunities, skills, training, services, employment, career opportunities, and ultimately provide services and resources accessible to secure self-sufficiency. And by doing that, again, we talked about how we continue to network and develop relationship with the community, leaders, service providers, and all of the other service providers in the larger community, the faith-based organizations and WIOA programs and services, to make sure that they are connected to those resources to help guide them towards self-independence. So that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Rena as we switch over?
Amy, I want to again remind you that I will modify these slides to get more detailed information and to share with the larger community.
Excellent. I will pull up Carrie's now, just 1 second. Are you all able to see my screen?
I can see it.
Yay, okay. Take it away, Carrie.
All right. Hello, I'm Carrie Thomas. I'm the Deputy Director of Business Services at the Department of Employment Security. The Business Services Division at IDS is where all the reemployment services and programs are managed from. So we have services related to job seekers and claimants and businesses. I guess earlier this summer, I did a micro teach on IDS's core partner responsibilities, Title III under WIOA, or also known as Wagner-Peiser. Today, I'm going to focus on 3 different things. 1, the Jobs for Veterans State Grant Program. 2, how migrant and seasonal farm workers are served in the WIOA or workforce ecosystem. And then a couple of things related to unemployment insurance, a couple of special efforts that are underway, programs. So you can go to the next slide. I always like to use this slide of the workforce system. And so just it's a good orientation. So the dark blue sections are the core partners and the red are the required partners. I've highlighted in light blue the things that I'm going to be referring to today. So you can go to the next slide and we'll start with the Jobs for Veterans State Grant Program. So the purpose of the Jobs for Veterans State Grant Program, and I noted here it's a required partner under WIOA as opposed to a core partner. The purpose is to assist eligible veterans who have significant barriers to employment and to connect employers with any qualified veteran candidates. So at a high level, this is a federal program administered by the U.S. Department of Labor, the Veterans Employment and Training area. So we refer to that as USDOL Vets or DOL Vets. It's just always worth noting this is actually a different section within DOL from the section that administers, that oversees Titles 1 and 3. So it has its own federal administrative structure, as well as state. So you can go to the next slide. So the two important things about the customers, I'm not going to go through in detail these eligibility requirements, but the important thing to remember about the customers of the JVSG program is that they must be an eligible veteran under the regulations, and they must have a significant barrier to employment. I will note that if you read closely the list of significant barriers to employment, you'll see that it covers quite a bit. And also it's worth mentioning that veterans can self-attest to any of these barriers. So the intention is, of course, to reach veterans who are experiencing barriers to employment and not necessarily to get them to have to prove all of those barriers. This eligibility requirement is really important because the way the Veterans Program or the JVSG program, we refer to it both ways, the way it is administered is very strictly to the regulations. So the only individuals that our veteran staff can work with are those who are eligible under the regulations. And that is monitored very closely by USDOL. I also think it's important to remember that all veterans are a priority of service in all DOL programs. So even if a veteran couldn't be served specifically through this IDES program, they would be a priority for services under Title III administered by IDES or any of the Title I programs. You can go to the next slide. So I think there's one more slide. Thank you. So the services that are provided are delivered by these two distinct positions at IDES. So the federal grant really only funds these staff positions, and they are very specific about what they can do. There's the Veterans Career Coach, also known by the acronym that it used to be called the DVOPS. So sometimes people refer to DVOPS, but they're also Veterans Career Coaches. We're trying to move to that terminology. And then Veterans Business Specialists, or people refer to them as Leavers, the previous acronym. So you'll see that the Veterans Career Coach is the one that focuses on working with eligible veterans for the program and providing individualized career services and then making referrals to other services that are available to those veterans if they're interested through the American Job Centers. They also are doing outreach to community groups and as much as possible to let them know that these individualized career services might be available to veterans. And they're also assisting the veterans business specialists by referring anybody who's ready for a job to open positions that are then identified by the veterans business specialists. So over on the right, you see what those individuals do. Their job is really to promote to all employers and their associations and any business groups the advantages of hiring veterans, any veteran. They don't just have to be eligible for the JVSG program. And they are likely to be working directly with the AJC partner staff to assist in developing jobs, doing job development for veterans. Also, they, in many local areas, coordinate with the outreach from the business services team. Okay, next slide. So the structure of the program, it is IDS is responsible for it, and our staff, these two positions, veterans career coaches and veterans business specialists, are employed by IDS, and they are located in American Job Centers across the state. I think there are more veterans business specialists than there are veterans career coaches. I don't have the exact numbers, but I can add those to this slide before they go out. The annual grant, that's actually kind of two grants, one for each of the positions. It's about $2 million annually for the veterans career coaches and about $4 million annually for the veterans business specialists. We serve anywhere from 550 to 600 veterans with individualized career services annually. And I have put the JVSG program manager contact information on this slide. People can feel free to reach out to Richard, requesting more information or wanting to figure out how to get connected or getting somebody connected to a program. All right, next slide. Okay, I'm going to move on to services for farm workers. So there traditionally has been a little bit of confusion about this because there are actually two things within the federal WIOA structure that are related to services for farm workers. So one is the responsibility of IDS, and one is the responsibility of an independent direct grantee from the USDOL, which we refer to as it's through the National Farm Worker Jobs Program. And I'm going to go over both of these. But I wanted to make sure that we're clear. These are two different things. They actually do two different things. And the staff in these programs work really closely together on the ground, but they are different. And they show up on the org chart or on that WIOA ecosystem chart differently. And that is because the IDS responsibilities are part of our Title III Wagner-Peiser responsibilities. And they are essentially to ensure that migrant seasonal farm workers are treated equitably in our service delivery. And it's not a separate program. It doesn't have separate funding. We pay for the work that we're required to do out of our Wagner-Peiser grant. The National Farm Worker Jobs Program is a separate grant program. It's a competitive grant program. It's a 3-year grant directly from the U.S. Department of Labor to one organization in Illinois. That organization is UMOS. And in fact, we just found out, I think it was last week, that they officially were awarded the next 3-year grant. And the purpose of that program is to assist farm workers and their families attain greater economic stability. I also want to note that IDS does not have any role in overseeing or administering that National Farm Worker Jobs Program grantee. We are required to partner with them, and we do partner with them, but we don't have any administrative responsibilities. Next slide. Okay, so to the Wagner-Peiser required migrant and seasonal farm worker services. So the customer that we are focused on here are either domestic or foreign migrant or seasonal farm workers. You might wonder, how do we have foreign farm workers? Foreign workers will come through one of the visa programs from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And so they are often hired directly by employers and then are brought to the United States. But they are eligible for any of the workforce services. They are employed when they come, but they may be, there might be other things that they need assistance with that is available through the workforce ecosystem. The way that this is structured at IDS, I actually, I'm going to just back up a little bit to give just a little bit of context for this that I did give in the micro teach I did on Wagner Pizer, which I think is helpful to people. The how these workers are treated in the public workforce system came about because of a lawsuit that was filed, I think, in the late 1960s. So it was filed by farm worker advocacy organizations and the NAACP in California. And what they had noticed was that farm workers, migrant farm workers, were not able to get services from the public workforce system. They were turned away. And so there was a lawsuit that was filed against the U.S. Department of Labor. It resulted in a court order and ultimately resulted in the U.S. Department of Labor promulgating regulations that were very specific about what the public workforce system needed to do. This was actually about 40 years ago, so it's been around for a long time. They are regulations that direct the Wagner Pizer entity in the state, so in Illinois, the Illinois Department of Employment Security. They require us to do outreach. They require us to do a few things, one of which is outreach. So we have to go to places where migrant and seasonal farm workers might congregate and let them know about the services in the public workforce system and what IDS can do with them. Not only does it require us to do outreach, it requires us to hire full-time staff to do the specific, who are specifically assigned to that outreach. So currently we are required to have staff in these 4 locations. Actually, it's 5, the 4 federally and 5 that we added 1. So North Aurora, Peoria, Champaign, and Mount Vernon, and also Springfield. And what they do is they coordinate with community groups and go to locations where farm workers are. Farms, housing locations, health clinics, resource events that farm workers go to. As I mentioned, they provide information about what services are available in the American Job Center, what services IDS has. We also can do enrollment in Illinois Job Link. We can have them fill out information for that on site. And we also have a responsibility to make sure they understand what their rights are on the job and what their rights are in receiving services from the workforce system and how to file complaints if they have any trouble in either of those areas. We are also required, so that's our outreach requirement, how it's staffed. We are also required to employ a state monitor advocate. So we have an individual state who serves as a state monitor advocate. Her name is Kinda Buenrostro. She is based in Central Illinois, and her job is to monitor our compliance with federal regulations. And she is kind of an independent person who, if she notices something is wrong or there's sort of chronic issues with how we're not doing outreach correctly or something, she has the ability to go directly to the director of IDS and let him know what is happening. In addition, we are also required to, just through our employment services program, be continuously monitoring what we're doing with respect to migrant seasonal farm workers. So we are also required to report to the Department of Labor data that shows how migrant and seasonal farm workers receive services versus non-migrant seasonal farm workers receive services. So those are referred to as equity indicators. We report those to the U.S. Department of Labor. And so that is partly what we monitor ourselves. Are we doing a good job? Are we not doing a good job? That's what the state monitor advocate also does. So there are kind of 2 distinct internal monitoring functions. And then we are also required to partner with the National Farm Worker Jobs Program grantee on coordinating on outreach and collecting data on farm workers, et cetera. So the program manager who oversees the outreach activities is Edgar Revuelta. He is also based in Central Illinois. He is the best contact for kind of working with IDES on outreach and that kind of stuff. I can add Kinda's information to this. Kinda Buenrostro is the state monitor advocate. Next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned, the National Farm Worker Jobs Program has one grantee in every state, and in Illinois, the grantee is UMOS. I also just want to be clear, IDS is not necessarily the expert on this program, so I'm just giving a high-level overview and pointing out a couple of things that are different from what IDS does. So the customer for the NFJP program are farm workers and their dependents. So there is the ability to provide services to the children of farm workers if that is what is needed. Currently UMOS has 3 locations in Illinois, so one in Champaign, the Champaign area, the Mount Vernon area, and Moline. So we do have very similar areas that we're covering. The types of services that are provided by the NFJP are more like Title I services. So this program is actually technically authorized under Title I of the WIOA statute. And so the types of services are more like Title I services. So in addition to just general career services, also have the ability to pay for training. Also, as I mentioned, since dependents are allowed to get services, there are more youth services and support services as well. I've also included here the current Illinois state contact for UMOS. And in my experience so far, they do have the ability really to work with a lot of younger people, which is really an advantage since a lot of migrant seasonal farm workers do have families that they are traveling with. The other thing I think that is an advantage, an asset of UMOS is that they also work in Wisconsin and in Missouri. So they have that perspective on sort of what the migratory patterns or experiences are of farm workers in the Midwest. They also have a lot of other non-workforce programming for these individuals, including some services related to human trafficking or labor trafficking, which is this is a very vulnerable part of the workforce. And so there are definitely bad actors, whether they're employers or labor contractors. And so UMOS also has those assets as an organization. You can go to the next slide. Great. Now I'm going to turn to some unemployment insurance initiatives that are underway at the department. So as I mentioned, I think in the overview microteach earlier in the summer, IDS's biggest program is all aspects of operating the unemployment insurance system in Illinois. So that is all aspects with claimants, all aspects with employers. That is all at IDES. Customers of the workforce system can access unemployment insurance and through the American Job Centers, so they can make application online or in person, whether it's with IDS staff or in American Job Centers where IDS does not have staff through direct linkage line, which should get people directly to an IDS staff person to answer questions or that kind of thing. But today I wanted to focus on 3 different things that are related to unemployment insurance. One is the Reemployment Services and Eligibility Assessment Program, which is a UI program that is administered by our Employment Services team for a subgroup of claimants. And I'll talk a little bit more about this. I also wanted to mention the WorkShare Illinois program, which is a layoff aversion strategy for employers. That is a special UI program. And then finally, I think there was some interest in understanding a little bit more about the UI modernization and equity work that IDS has underway. And so I'll flag a couple of those projects. There are several projects. I'm going to flag a couple of projects that really have an impact on claimants or customers of the workforce system. Next slide. Okay, the Reemployment Eligibility Assessment Program that we also fondly refer to as the RESEA program. As I mentioned, this is a UI eligibility program. So the customer of this program is a claimant who has been identified as likely to exhaust their unemployment insurance benefits before getting reemployed. The program has four federal purposes from the federal level. One is to improve outcomes for claimants, so help somebody get reemployed, reduce the amount of time that they have to rely on unemployment insurance benefits. The second purpose is to strengthen program integrity. And this is really, when I get to the services in this program, this is really by very quickly connecting with claimants in person and helping them understand making sure they understand all the program eligibility requirements so they don't make any errors, which can often result in improper overpayments. And then that, puts in a chain reaction of other things that need to happen. The third purpose is to promote alignment with the broader WIOA vision of program integration and service delivery for job seekers. So, we really see RESEA and also our employment services program as a gateway to the rest of the workforce system. And that is a responsibility that we need to really not just take seriously, but really make sure that we are making quality referrals, making sure people understand what else is available in the system, et cetera. And so that's again, specifically the final goal, making sure RESEA serves as an entry point for claimants. Next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned, the customers are those who are likely to exhaust benefits before they're reemployed. So important thing to note here, an individual cannot come into an American Job Center and say, I want to get into the RESEA program. That's not how it works. You can't be referred to the program. But claimants who are assigned to this program are going to be referred to the rest of the system. So it's an important, feeder. If you look all the way down to the bottom, we are trying to serve anywhere from 25,000 to 30,000 claimants every year through this program. So it's an important referral source for the rest of the system. What happens in the RESEA program, somebody's assigned and then they have a one-on-one appointment with the IDS staff person, and they go through a series of required services, or as DOL calls them, interventions. The first is to make sure that they understand the UI eligibility requirements, as I said, and that they understand they must be able, available, and actively seeking work the entire time they're receiving benefits. They also get an orientation to the American Job Center, what is available to them, what the programs are. They get a resume review. Possibly that will result in a referral to a resume workshop if they're going to need extra help, or to an employment services individual appointment related to their resume. They're going to have a review of the work search requirements specifically under unemployment insurance, going to develop an individual reemployment plan. And then if any from that meeting, if it resulted in any special referrals that somebody needed, those referrals will be made after the meeting. We are currently trying to make referrals for everyone to the dislocated worker program, just so that people are aware there are services, because by definition, anybody assigned to RESEA is considered a dislocated worker under Title I. So the structure of the program is staffed by IDS employees in local offices. The number of claimants that we serve in a local office is related to what we refer to as the claims load of that office. So if there's a lot of claimants in that office, there's going to be a lot of RESEA appointments from that office. Currently the funding is at about $14 million annually. I think it's also important to mention that it's only been about 3 years since Congress made this a permanent program, and they set out an increase in funding over the years. So IDS has been working to really expand how many people we serve. I believe, are on track to serve 25,000 this year, but we're hoping to get to 30,000 next year. All right, next slide. Workshare Illinois. So Workshare Illinois is the name of the program that is what's called a short-term compensation program. It is authorized by federal law, and then also is authorized in state law. And the purpose is to use the UI program to provide an alternative to permanent layoffs by employers when they face a downturn in business. So the customer for Workshare is really the business who might be seeing a downturn on the horizon that they think is going to be temporary, or they think they're going to work through. So instead of laying people off fully and entirely and permanently, they can use the Workshare program to do temporary partial layoff. So it's a way to retain your existing staff, and like knowing that when there's a rebound or when you're able to retool, you can bring those staff back full time. So the way it works is that we have an e-services site, the Workshare Illinois e-services site. An employer will submit a plan. So there's a sort of planning tool, some information that they have to submit, they register, and then they have to put together a plan. And the plan shows that, like, how many employees are going to be on the partial layoff. They have to be within the same, within a business unit, what the time frame they anticipate, et cetera. So they put together that plan, they establish a plan. An employer can actually establish a plan and then never use that plan, but they have to get that plan approved by IDS first. And then when that plan is implemented, any of the affected employees receive partial unemployment benefits, so unemployment benefits to make up for the lost hours. And the reduction in hours can be anywhere from 20% to 60% of hours. And we can certainly provide a lot more information. So the structure at IDS is that the IDS UI Special Programs Unit manages the program because it's a UI benefits program. But our business services team, who generally work in the workforce system, they conduct the outreach and marketing in partnership with DCO, with their team that's interfacing with employers. And IDS we did have some funding one-time funding from the U.S. Department of Labor. So there's no separate funding for the ongoing program, but we did have one-time funding from the U.S. Department of Labor, first to launch the program and then to market the program. Excuse me. So we are actively involved, our business service team with DCO, doing a whole range of marketing activities. So very targeted social media, targeted towards industries, targeted towards employer size, targeted towards type of leader in an organization, whether HR or a CEO. We also are attending industry events. So we've been attending industry events like for the Illinois Healthcare Association, CPA Association. We'll be at a manufacturing industry event, so we can really tell everybody in the employer community about this program, because our goal is to increase as much as possible the awareness of this program. Because, as you can imagine, when employers are hiring or have hiring needs, they're not thinking about layoffs, right? They're not thinking about this program. But then when they come to a downturn, if they don't know about this program, they may not have realized that they could have had another option. So we have our staff is ready and waiting to work on doing presentations or doing outreach events with individual employers, with employer associations, et cetera. And I realized I didn't put on this slide that the best contact person is actually our statewide business services manager, Todd Lowry. I will add that to the slide before it goes out. And I also just thought I'd mention, we did in fiscal year 24, we did have 35 approved plans, which doesn't seem like much. And it is certainly nothing, it's like barely a drop in the bucket when you think of the size of the business community in Illinois, but it was a significant increase from the previous year. And I should also mention that this Workshare Illinois was launched in 2021. So it's really only been around for 3 years, and the marketing and awareness raising is really critical. Next slide. Okay, so finally, I wanted to mention the UI modernization and equity projects at IDES. So the purpose of these projects is to better understand and address equity gaps in unemployment insurance. So gaps in access, gaps in uptake, et cetera, using data to then refine our service delivery systems, processes, and our communications. So the whole goal of these projects is really equitable access to unemployment insurance. They came about because the U.S. Department of Labor had a series of competitive grants for states. Well, I guess it was both competitive and just state grants to do specific projects. So there are multiple, there are more than are on this slide, and they are both internal and external facing. And so internal projects are really focused on improving some of our business business processes and creating some efficiencies and just better administration internally. Unfortunately, the federal dollars were not at any level to help states that needed to maybe do big overhauls of their systems, but they were sufficient to help states to do things that would greatly improve access and take any lessons from all of that pandemic era work and sort of bring it into their day-to-day, a state's day-to-day processes. So the external facing projects that I wanted to highlight, you could call our equitable access and improving claimant experience projects. And I think that the reason this is really important to the workforce system is, there are, tens of thousands of unemployment insurance claimants who come to IDS. They are anticipating or maybe in financial crisis when they come to apply for unemployment benefits. And that is their primary concern initially, but we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to get them to connected to the range of workforce services that might be available to them if they need it. So all of the ways that we are, their experience with us and our communication with them, the more we can improve that, the more likely it is that they will then in turn want to come to the places that we refer them to, or if they've come in person to an American Job Center to interact with IDS, that they will come back to use the resource room or to get a service from a partner. So the three projects that I wanted to mention are our UI correspondence project. So this has been mentioned at IWIB meetings, but worth mentioning again. So we are in the process of working through all of our claimant correspondence. And when we say claimant correspondence, we mean all the many letters that are automatically generated from our benefits system and go to claimants. So most of these letters are information for claimants, but also have legal requirements and reminders, et cetera. So if you have ever seen any of those letters, they can be unnecessarily confusing. They can have a lot of information that could be improved in how we communicate about them. So we are in the process of bringing some plain language tools to that claimant correspondence review. This is not one or two templates. This is a lot of work. And so we will be leveraging some of the tools that have been, the plain language tools that have been developed and to assist any of the manual revisions that need to be made. The next is really some service design using human-centered design principles. So this is everything, just kind of everything that you can think of that's available online. So what are our online communications when there's like something that changes about UI suddenly? How are we communicating that through our online systems, on our website? There are many translation tools that are out there. So making sure that we are leveraging all the translation services that are available and that they are easily findable and usable by claimants. And then also the same is true with accessibility tools. And then, of course, in line with plain language, using infographics, video explainers, things like that to really improve the customer's ability to get accurate information, understand that information, and then take action using that information, as well as to get to the next one, upgrading our claimant portal so that individuals can get better access to the information that they have provided to the department, information that the department has for them about their claim and about the status of their claim. So this should hopefully increase people's ability just to get questions answered without having to get to an individual person to then go in and look at our system to look and answer that question. So those are the three sort of external facing customer service projects that are underway, all of which are intended to improve the claimant experience with their unemployment insurance, with the unemployment insurance process, and also improve equitable access. And overall, that should then in turn give people, make it more likely or to come back to an American Job Center, follow up on referrals, and also if it reduces some of the friction between the claimant and IDS, we can then focus more on the reemployment strategies that they may need and making sure people get to them. I think that's all of my slides. You know, then I think there's a final slide. Yeah. And I'm entertaining any questions there might be.
Thank you, Carrie. That was a lot of information. But all fantastic information. So anyone on the call, do you have any questions for Carrie? You are all able to unmute yourselves. So Jane, Karina, Mike, Rena, anybody have any questions for Carrie about all the information she gave?
All right.
With that, thank you both for your time today. I really, oh, Jane, I'm sorry, you were unmuted. Please go ahead.
No, I was just simply going to say thank you. It's a lot of information. I'm sure I have a ton of questions, but just absorbing right now.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. We have one more session tomorrow before our IWIB meeting on Thursday. So tomorrow will be, Charles will be on with us, and then Natasha Allen as well. So post-secondary CTE and SNAP. So thank you all so very much for your time today, and we'll see you tomorrow and on Thursday.